The policy of your site, congregate or otherwise, or your senior center will always be to continue to provide services, even in case of emergencies. Why? Because that's why your site even exists. You play a hugely vital role in your community, and the lives of many seniors are dependent on your services. In order to continue to provide those necessary services, your organization must prepare and maintain an emergency plan. The plan is only as good as it is useful and understood by all who play a role in implementing it in case there's an emergency. So what does that mean? It means that when you're putting together your plan, get input from emergency preparedness experts in your community, such as your first responders. You can also get input from your staff, volunteers, and the seniors themselves. When your plan is completed and signed off on, share it with staff and volunteers, and make sure that everyone understands just how important it is to know that they are an integral part of its implementation during an emergency. Okay, let's start putting together the plan. What do we do first? We prepare lists. Lists are extremely important prior to and during emergencies. Knowing whom to contact prior to and during is vital when initiating emergency preparedness and then subsequently emergency response. There needs to be an updated contact list of all of your clients. You need to have their addresses, their phone numbers, and if they have cell phones, you need those numbers too, and their email addresses. They also need to be updated. You also need a list of emergency contacts for your clients. In case an emergency occurs at your center, you'll need to know whom to alert about your clients. They should give you their emergency contact numbers that they would wish to alert in case of emergency. Now, contact lists need to be kept and updated for all your vendors, your suppliers, and local organizations that provide services to your site. You need contact lists of staff and volunteers. They must be maintained and updated. They have to include addresses, phone numbers, cell phone numbers, and don't forget their email addresses. Now, there are certain items that are for internal use only. For example, there needs to be a contact list for staff and volunteers that is easily accessible to the entire staff. The list should contain phone numbers, addresses, email addresses, and cell phone numbers. These should not be accessible to your clients. There also needs to be an organization chart with names, titles, and other pertinent information of staff at the Area Agency on Aging. There needs to be updated charts to illustrate who is responsible before, during, and after emergency operations. The charts need to include who is responsible for key activities, such as dealing with local governments and vendors, and any other emergency personnel in the community. There also needs to be some sort of diagram, or at the very least, a listing of where the utility shutoffs are located. For example, where is the water supply valves and the fire protection systems, sprinklers, and those important fire extinguishers? Procedures need to be developed to perform emergency training for all new employees and volunteers. This course would be an excellent training tool for all new hires. This should be made mandatory for all employees, new and those already in place. Procedures must be developed so that all employees know what to do in case of an emergency. These basic plans must be in place to ensure the safety of everyone who is either an attendee of the center or who is either on staff, or don't forget those center volunteers. Every organization should have a policy in place to guide those that work there about emergency preparedness and response. In addition, there may be state or local regulations that the organization must comply with. In most cases, the policies will be broad, general statements. The organization's management must understand those broad statements to ensure that the specific plans meet those requirements. In addition to complying with state regulations, most senior centers and congregate nutrition programs are subject to federal regulations that are always monitored by your area agency on aging. Now, it's best to practice to ensure that your emergency plans comply with the regulations being monitored by the AAA. The best place to look in order to receive those requirements is to directly work with your area agency on aging. It's also prudent, once your plan is developed, to have it approved by the AAA. So, let's dive in and start taking those courses and learn how to plan for emergencies and, less likely, but obviously important, to disasters, because they're bound to be part of our future.